Hello everyone. It's a beautiful Monday here in Singapore, and I hope that your week is starting off well. I wanted to connect with you today to talk about teletherapy or telecounseling as it's sometimes called, and the pros and cons of it from a therapist perspective. Many people are considering teletherapy for the first time because of COVID and travel restrictions and just the convenience factor. So I thought it might be helpful to come on and share with you from a therapist perspective what the pros and cons are of teletherapy. And maybe it'll help you weigh that decision out more fully. We're going to start with the pros today, and I'm going to share right off the bat that before doing teletherapy because of COVID, I was not a proponent of it. I believe so much in the relationship and the dynamics between the therapist and the client as a factor of healing that it was very difficult for me to imagine teletherapy being nearly as effective as the kind of therapy that I can provide in office. But I've learned that there are some real substantial benefits to teletherapy. One of them is that I'm able to connect with people that I wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. So this is not just about geography, although that's a wonderful, wonderful way that I can reach people that are not present with me here in Singapore. But it's also about people who find it very difficult or even impossible to come into a therapy office. For example, those who are battling sickness, the elderly, immunocompromised people, or people who are living with disabilities of some sort. So I love that teletherapy kind of levels the ground for accessibility, and that it allows people that might otherwise think that therapy was not something they could benefit from, allow them to come in and be seen and receive that help that they need. One fun thing about teletherapy that I've discovered too is that I get to see a little bit more of my clients' lives. So when you're at home or at a quiet place in your office, your therapist is able to see more of your life and see more of your context than what we get to see in office. What we see of you when you come to the office is a snapshot. And we know that you are outside of your context and that you're going to be functioning somewhat differently because of that. And we try to account for that. But when we see you online and we see you in the context of your life, it provides additional information, some of which I'm sure some clients prefer we didn't see or know about. But even so, it's very helpful. I feel like I have a better sense sometimes of what my clients' lives are like outside of therapy, and that can be really helpful. And finally, convenience is, of course, one of the biggest benefits of telecounseling. So this is true in both time and money. It saves commuting time for my clients, but it also saves administrative time in session. Most telecounseling platforms have very easy payment reception functions, and so it's very simple for my clients to pay before session, even in the middle of the session, or at the end, and to do that within seconds, instead of having to wait for someone to process that for them or to complete paperwork. So I appreciate the convenience of the telecounseling platforms for payment and the time that it saves me to actually do more therapy. It's also less expensive as a therapist to provide telecounseling. So my monthly rate for my telecounseling platform is just a small fraction of what it is to pay for my office space. And this is some savings that I'm able to pass on then to my clients. I feel that if I'm able to save money through seeing them online, then I want to pass those savings on to them. And I like having the ability to do that. Some cons of teletherapy that I have found are the lack of physical presence. No matter how well a therapist and a client are able to communicate and to understand one another, the online dynamic, it provides some additional barriers that you don't have in office. This doesn't mean that teletherapy cannot be as effective. In fact, research is showing that for many people it is as effective as in-office therapy. But therapists function differently, and some of us rely a lot on the therapeutic alliance and on that physical presence as part of our work. I'm one of those therapists, and so I'm always going to prefer that I'm present with my clients physically so that I can offer physical touch or encouragement right there with them. I believe there's a lot of synergy that happens between a client and the therapist that is missing or can be missing in the online context. However, with practice and learning some additional skills, I do think teletherapy can be effective for a wide range of clients. That leads me to my next disadvantage of online therapy, and that is that it's not appropriate for everyone. I work with clients who are experiencing grief and trauma predominantly, and what I've found with those clients is that physical presence is very important at certain stages of their healing. And so for some of them, I don't recommend moving to teletherapy, especially in the beginning of our work together. But I've also found this to be true with clients who are suffering with anxiety, or clients who are doing EMDR and do not respond well to eye movements done remotely through the computer. Some clients doing EMDR really need to have the tactile stimulation through the Teletherapy device that I use, and it's much more effective for them. And finally, clients that struggle with dissociation or are in acute distress, it's very important for me that I'm present with them, so I'm not missing any nonverbal cues that I can miss in this very small window of seeing their faces, and that I can make sure that I'm really able to understand their experience and what they need in those moments. And finally, although this hasn't happened to me as much personally, many therapists that I'm talking to are sharing that they also think that teletherapy can lower clients' motivation and commitment to therapy. So I think that anytime that we lower the bar on therapy, we're going to get pros and cons of that. For example, it is more accessible, as I mentioned earlier, to see a therapist online. It's more convenient, more accessible for people, and those are good things. That means more people will get into therapy that need it and that couldn't have it before. But conversely, it also means that there are people who wouldn't make the effort to go to therapy, but they figure if I can sit on my couch in my pajamas and log on and just talk to somebody, then that's probably a therapy I can buy into. So if you are that person and you're hoping that therapy can be just something that you kind of dial in for and that's about it, it's not going to be nearly as effective for you. I think actually that teletherapy requires a greater level of commitment from both the therapist and the client to make it as effective as an in-office appointment. Okay, so I hope that those pros and cons have given you something to think about as you're considering telecounseling. And if you have any questions or are looking for a therapist to work with you online, I hope that you'll reach out to me. I'd love to answer your questions. I offer a free consultation that I can do by phone or through my online platform, and I would love to connect with you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.